today's class, we'll be discussing about standard functions and user-defined. Of this lecture will be initially we'll be discussing about the topic that we had studied in the previous class, like control structures and input-output operations. Role of functions in the programming we'll study in this class. At the same time, we'll also study about the standard library function. For example, like pow is a standard library function which is used to compute x to the power y kind of computation. And similarly, you can also consider xqrt function. And we'll also discuss how to write user-defined. As you know, in the previous class, we have studied all the control structures like your do, while do, for loop. Apart from that, you had also studied in output options in the previous class. So now come in today's class, we'll discuss about function. Now, what is a function? A function is a block of code that performs a specific task. Both, you need to create a program to create a circle and then color it. Then you can, for this purpose, you can write two functions, one for creating the circle, like create a color function, another for giving color to the circle, where a circle object will be a parameter to the function. So for that, we can write create color. Now, a function helps you to divide a complex program into smaller chunks and thereby making your program easy to understand. At the same time, it also gives you a benefit of reusing purpose. Now, there are two types of functions. One is your standard library function, another user-defined. First, we'll talk about standard library functions. The standard library functions are built-in functions in C programming. These functions are defined in the header file. Therefore, students, you remember, whenever you will be using any standard function, always make sure that you are including or you are incorporating the header files related to. Like for example, the printf function which you are using while writing program is a standard library function to send a formatted output. This function is defined in the header file stdio.h, and therefore, if you recall your basic programs that you had written till date, you might have observed that always we do include a header file by writing, as it is reflected here, include hash include stdio. Similarly, SQRT is also a standard library function which calculates a square root of a number. This function is defined in the header file math.h. Therefore, whenever we'll be using this function SQRT inside our program, we'll always make sure that we are including. What is function prototype? Function prototype tells the compiler the return type of the data that the function return. It tells the number of arguments passed to the function. It tells the data type of each of these arguments that is being passed. Also, it tells the order in which arguments are being passed to the. Therefore, students, when whatever order you follow while writing the prototype of the function, make sure that in the same order you are also passing parameter in the calling function, and also you are using the parameter in the same order in the body of the function. Prototypes therefore specifies the input output interface to the, because it tells what is to be given to the function and what we should expect from the function. Therefore, prototype is also called as a signature of the function. Gives you a structure of the function. A function prototype is simply a declaration of the function that specifies name, parameter, and return type as mentioned in the slide. It does not contain any body. The function prototype gives information to the compiler that the function may later be used in the program. So before using the program, we write down the function prototype before the main itself. Now the syntax of writing function type is return type, function name, and the list of a particular order as per our record. For example, in the power function, suppose you have a power function, so you need to write down the first return type, which is int, name of the function power, and the parameter is int, data type of the x is int y, where y is the parameter, int is the data type. Similarly, for sum1 also, here the data type, return type is int, name of the function is sum1, and there are two parameters, one x and what is the user-defined function? As you got to know that case of system-defined function, the function is already defined in the header file. Simply, you can use the function. Only thing you need to know the prototype function so that you can use as per the prototype. Case of user-defined function, everything is from your side. You have to define you have to decide what should be there. You have to also define the body. You need to write down the of the function, the program itself, and you also accordingly you should have a call. There are three things that you careful about. One for writing function, user-defined function. One is prototype definition. Another is function calling statement, and the third one the function body by which you are to accomplish the specified aspect. So as you got to know a function of code that performs specific task, C allows you to define functions. These functions are known as user-defined. Example, suppose you need to create a circle and color it depending upon the radius and the color. So you can create two functions. One is create circle function and another is color function. And based on the parameter where you are going to color or what you are going to send or create circle with to take parameter radius or color. Based on that, you need to. And this is another example which I have given for performing addition of two numbers. You have seen. Now first, I'll show you. I'll you be able to observe which one is prototype, which one is calling statement, and which one is function body. You have, as I have mentioned in the common statement, the first one is prototype. As you already got to know, this prototype is only having data type, return type, name of the function, and the two parameters. Students, you remember here one thing very tough. In case of prototype, it is not essential, not necessary. You need to give this variable name like a. So if you simply write int comma int, then also it is because that gives the structure for giving the structure. Then another add numbers n1 and 2 sum equal to add numbers n1 and 2 is all, and the actual body which you are writing outside the main is the first line is the definition, and whatever you are writing inside the block curly bracket that is. Now check because this function we are writing for adding two numbers. So what I am doing in this program, we are taking the two inputs user, which is one and two, all of it, and accordingly I have declared two variable, and those n1 and 2 I am passing as parameter and n2. These two variables are called as a for actual parameter. Now, once you call this statement, will come the body of the function where a will take a copy of n1, b will take a copy of n2. Then it will declare a variable and memory for result. So based on value that giving in b, result will be calculated. Then it will return the result, which the sum is going to hold that, and then it is going to print the sum. So this is what the process is all about. And as you have seen, because for addition of two numbers, we require two variable, and based on whether you want to perform addition of two integers or another data type, based on that you can design your function, and accordingly you need to write the prototype. Here, there are some one thing I want to mention here. Here, if you write down the function body outside the main and you are calling the function in the main, then you always need to write down the prototype. But if you write down the same function body before the main, before calling the function, then you can avoid writing prototype. Now, as you have seen in there is a statement that I'm using to call the function, this function call statement. So what is it, what should be the structure of this function call statement? This function call statement should also be at par with the prototype. Now, this function call and control the here in this when you call a function, the control, as I had already mentioned, control is transferred to the function body. For this, the syntax is as we have done function name and the arguments. Because here in my in example, the function is returning some value, so that in the left hand side, I'm taking a variable so that the variable can hold the value. In this class, we have studied about the functions, we have studied about standard library function, user-defined function. We have also discussed function prototype, function calling statement. So these are some references that we are going to refer, and we are referring. Have any doubt, you can always contact me in the mail ID that is given here. Thank you.